Thank you all for coming. This is our third founder meetup, and every time we want to dive into one specific topic, and today that topic is going to be pitch decks. I know I didn't know a lot about pitch decks,
so I invited the guy that helped me build the first pitch deck and got us back to two investments. And as far as these meetup goes, we have a packed schedule for the next 8 months. So all VCs similar to Saagar already kind of lined up every single month. We don't know the dates yet, obviously, because it fluctuates both our schedule and their schedule. But we're going to try to keep it at least once a month, middle of the month. I know it's a game. There's a game today, so it is what it is. Last time I forgot to mention, all of you, except having Saagar's face, you also have a QR code on the other side. When you scan the QR code, it actually gives the other person all your data. Well, not all of it, at least your phone number, your name, your company info, and a bunch of other stuff. So it's very easy to exchange information. And as well, Saagar has his own QR codes. You can always scan him and get the email or whatever you wanna do. I'm sure you all have seen that there's a bunch of beer, Coke, whatever. There is no wine though. We were asked last time, like, will there be wine? And I feel like wine is too fancy for this kind of setup. So we're just gonna keep it beer, Coke, and maybe water. If somebody brings wine, I'm not gonna be pissed off. But I don't think we're... Yeah. I actually wanted to buy a wine because you took me to that Korean restaurant and we drank that hideous wine or beer. Yeah, whatever, Korean thing, whatever. In any case, pizzas are being baked. They'll arrive in this room. You'll have time to kind of eat. And this kind of is, this lasts about 10 p.m. After that, there's a cafe. Below that, they have really good pizza, which we're gonna eat here, but in case you want more, you can always go kind of downstairs. So I'm just gonna give you a quick intro about Saagar from my side, and then I'll let him kind of talk. I've known Saagar for, I think, around 3 years now. He's actually the first investor I ever met, and we stayed in contact ever since then. It was Web Summit of 2020. It was the first Web Summit I attended. It was also COVID. It was a virtual Web Summit. I joined a panel where he was. I had no idea who he was. And the panel promised we could ask a question. So I was trying to raise around. The only question I had is how much percentage do VCs want at a seed level? So he jokingly said that a VC walks in a bar and asks for 20%. Which I think is still true and even funny. So I've thanked him a million times. I'm going to thank you again. Thank you for kind of leading the first round and helping us so far. So if you wouldn't mind kind of giving us a brief intro of yourself and what you do at Begin and what do you guys focus on? What areas do you invest?
So I'm one of the partners at Begin Capital. Begin is a London-based fund, team of 4 managing $60 million. So our office is one little desk, really. In London, we do seed and Series A. We invest in vertical SaaS and technical plays. So cloud, app, data infrastructure, stuff like Treblle, everything AI, all the way up to quantum and like hardware chips, but like technical solutions and vertical SaaS. We've done 26 deals out of this fund so far. Plan is to do another 10 over the next year. Can be lead investor, can be a follow-on investor. Usually lead a third of the rounds. Always like co-investing alongside other investors, invest across all of Europe. So we're trying to double dip this guy if we can. But the idea is, flying across all of Europe, meeting all the local ecosystem. So I'll also get, I think, everyone's details here. So I might be reaching out to hopefully a lot of you. That's us in a nutshell.
Cool. The reason why I invited you or Saagar to talk about DEX is, as I mentioned, kind of hinted, he helped me kind of build the first one. I had absolutely zero knowledge of building DEX other than Googling randomly on the internet and finding basically the big, huge DEX that had all the data. So I kind of felt bad that we don't have any data and we were just getting started. So he kind of taught me all the buzzwords, taught me, how to think about the deck, how to build them. But I never actually asked you, how did you actually get good at building and understanding decks?
So I don't have a consulting background. So I didn't build decks before, ever. In VC, obviously, we see a lot of decks, right? So I know what I wanted to see from a deck, from a startup deck. But also at the previous fund I was at, where we invested in Treblle, we had this process internally working together with the founder to create a narrative that worked for us as a fund, that made sure that it hits all the main points. Because some decks are very good, but they omit the traction. They omit a lot of information. So we knew we wanted a deck that covers everything. So at Nauta, we used to help the founders create decks.
Yeah.
And create the narrative. Because we also found that usually helps the founders and the startup itself understand themselves better, understand how they're positioned in the market, changes sometimes the phrasing, because you're having a lot of interactions and you actually realize what is the real North Star of a company. Because often people are building, they're busy, there's a lot of stuff happening in a startup. They don't actually know not everybody in the team knows the same North Star. I think if you have a clean deck and a clean story, it helps the entire company, as well as helps all the investors understand what they're investing in. So I think that's how I got better at building decks, because we saw a lot, and then every investment we did, I had to help them create a deck.
How many investments did you oversee at Nauta?
15.
15? Cool.
And then here another 5.
How many missed? How many opportunities were that from 15? How many did you see?
How many decks did we see?
Yeah.
A few thousand. Definitely a few thousand.
So all day long, decks?
No, but I would say at least 20% of the time you're seeing decks.
Okay.
Right? So I think just because of that, after a while, when you look on DocSend, how an investor looks at your deck, sometimes you see them as like skimming through your deck really quick, because they're looking for certain things. And I think once you know what VCs are looking for, it helps have something that'll make them look at a slide, and certain slides they need, but they don't care about. But if you don't have it, they penalize you. There's a lot of like hidden information.
Yeah. You've mentioned DocSend. So basically, I've seen founders send decks to VCs like using some kind of a document tracking tool, so they know when the deck is open, they know how many times you viewed it, what slides. Do you prefer that or do you don't prefer that? I feel like you guys are not big fans.
I think a lot of VCs are not fans because they share it. But at the same time, if you make it a DocSend or any of these platforms, so long as you make it downloadable, I think that's okay. The moment you don't make it downloadable at all, that's more annoying. Because again, they need it for their own records. I understand if you have it online, if you update the slides, the latest version is all, you have version control. But people are sending these decks, regardless what they tell you, they are sending it via WhatsApp to 5 other investors that they think, hey, this is interesting for you. Have a look, have a look, have a look.
Is that a normal thing?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Even if you sign an NDA or anything, they will send you a deck. So just be aware of that. They will share, if they like it, they will share the deck. It's good for everyone.
Nice. So when we were raising the first round, I remember like everybody's like, hey, send me your deck. Do you have a deck? What's the deck? Where's the deck? When's the deck coming? Is it updated? When was it updated? Why is the deck so important to you guys?
2 things. It tells us, hopefully, very quickly, everything you're doing. But more importantly, I think what's important for founders to know, the deck is sales material for the investor to present you internally to the rest of the team. It is not sales material for you to convince them to invest in you. And I think that's a slight discrepancy that people don't realize. So if you have a very nice deck that answers very nice things, it's like a nice advert that they can then go internally into their deal flow meeting and be like, hey, this team is cool, look what they've done, look at these logos, look at this number, we should have a meeting with them, we should prioritize this deal over these other deals. So make it very easy for somebody else to take your message, regurgitate it, pass it on. And I think that's the power between really strong decks and okay decks.
Any decks that suck?
Most of them.
Nice. So you and I were kind of talking yesterday about kind of preparing for the talk, and one thing that I completely kind of omitted when the first time we were designing and building the deck, even with you, was basically I never thought about it, but like you said, like I was basically the one that sent you the deck, and you talked to me. Generally, I guided you through the deck, right? So you kind of heard me talk about it, as well as kind of have seen the deck pair in pair. But most of the time, I'm assuming you don't get a chance to pitch the deck, so you have to kind of build a deck that speaks for itself, right?
Exactly. Well, it's supporting material. So I think usually, well, it depends. A lot of funds will ask you for a deck before the first meeting to decide if they take the meeting. But sometimes if you meet a founder and you like the idea, you might have the first meeting, but they don't want to talk through the deck.
Okay.
Because again, if it's a half an hour call and I say, cool, show me your deck, a lot of founders go into automatic 20-minute talk, I don't get to ask any questions. You're not learning anything about the investor in that call because you're just talking for 20 minutes and I'm asking 2 questions at the end. So how do you compare which investor is good versus bad, who understands it? You don't know. So I think some investors will have an informal call first, present themselves, try to get a feel for what you're building, then ask for the deck, and then have a more formal meeting where they say, okay, I have a good idea, I think the founder's good, I think the traction, like the 2-3 key points that they need to see are interesting, round size, whatever. And then they'll have a pitch meeting where you present the deck. But I think the better investors will have very specific questions. They will tell you a structure. I want to spend this meeting on your product, and you go to market.
Yeah.
Right? And then you can use the deck and the slides as backup material when you're answering those things. Rather than you saying slide 2, slide 3, slide 4, slide 5.
Yeah.
They'll be like, skip this slide, let's spend more time here.
Okay. So would you say the pitch is more important than the deck, or equally important, or is the deck...
You don't get to pitch if your deck is bad.
Okay. So...
Usually. So I think it's...
That's why you first ask for the deck.
A lot of people ask for the deck. If somebody else recommends a startup, they'll usually share the deck and a brief summary, right? So I think the deck is the first exposure you get yourself.
Yeah.
Everything else is somebody else describing you when they get an introduction.
Yeah.
So I think deck is useful for that. And exactly, I think if you can keep it short and just show the 1 or 2 things, the deck should be 2 things. Something that makes the investor want to have a meeting with you, and something that they can use internally to convince the rest of the team we should spend more time on this team.
Yeah. How easy, by the way, when you answer that question, then basically what somebody might hear here is like, let's just lie in the deck to get a meeting and then we'll rectify it. Is that easily discoverable?
I think a lot of American, Israeli startups, they do that. A little bit more so than I think European startups. It'll still come out.
Is it like big market numbers or traction?
Market number always has to be big, but traction. I think a lot of times you see traction. And if it's too obvious, or if it comes out, it'll kill your chances with the investor. So the amount of companies you see, hey, I've got 50K MRR, 100K MRR. And then you dig deeper and it's like, oh, we've got 30K MRR, which is also very good, which is very good for the status you're at. And then you've got another 80K contracted over the next year, which is also phenomenal. But the fact that I thought you were phenomenal and now I think you're very good,
it's a bad idea.
Automatically I'm like, what else are you lying about? And now I'm digging everywhere else for holes. So I think, be honest, if you have updates, it's better to say, I sent the deck, I was at 30, now I'm at 40. That's more impressive.
Nice.
Than them thinking you're at 100 and now you're at 30 and then you're at 40.
Okay. And when we talk about kind of the deck quality, what makes a good deck? Like I know like every one of us wants to tell their own story, have their own flow, have their own narrative, but I'm sure you guys like to see at least a couple of slides that are kind of universal across everything that you're looking at, so you can basically know, hey, I'm taking that next meeting, I'm not taking that next meeting. What would those slides be off the top of your head?
Actually, I think it's easier than that. Because founders, VC see 1,000 decks, or let's say at least 20 to 50 decks a week.
Yeah.
Right? think at the end of the week, they're going to remember 2 or 3 of those decks. Be one of those 2 or 3 decks.
Okay.
That can be a lot of things. It can be the ugliest deck. It can be the deck with the best numbers. It can be the best team. It can be the best logos, the most interesting idea. But they'll remember 1 or 2 things from any given deck. Make sure that is obvious. And then you still need to cover all the basics. But I think a lot of companies do a lot, and then you have an average deck with an average message and an average startup, although you might be really good. So don't overthink this design is not good enough, I could be better. It's like, you will be changing the deck 100 times in the first month. After every feedback, you're going to tweak it, you're going to tweak it, you're going to tweak it. So launch the deck sooner than you think. Get feedback, keep iterating, figure out what resonates when you talk to people. Highlight that. And certain slides, if everybody's saying, cool, let's skip this slide, remove that or like push it down.
Who do you ask for feedback? Somebody who's reviewing your deck at that moment in time?
No. You need to figure it out.
Okay.
If you ask for direct feedback, they're not going to give you feedback.
So I was lucky you gave us feedback.
I had to help create the deck. So that's why, a captive audience.
So basically maybe send the deck to a couple of other founders who probably experienced raising.
But again, they will tell you what worked for them.
Okay. So it's not universal, right?
Exactly. There's no right or wrong. There'll be certain things. Make sure there's a team slide. Make sure there's a go-to-market slide, a product slide, a problem slide, a market sizing slide, business like model, traction. Like you can Google what should be in a slide deck. There'll always be the same 8 to 10 things, right? It's like make sure you have answers for all of those. Yes, but every business is different, right? So like for Treblle, you might need to explain a little bit more what APIs are, why APIs are big or whatever. If it's something very simple, I don't know, I'm selling water bottles, I don't need to explain to people the market is big. It should be like, I sold 5 million water bottles yesterday. That should be the sales pitch. It's like, what is the easiest sales pitch that gets people hooked? And that depends on the business by business.
So if I distill it, basically the idea for the deck is not to make you look extremely smart by throwing away specific words from your market or your product, but it's actually to kind of bring what you do to, everybody in the room so they can kind of identify with that. Right?
Exactly. Just assume you're smart, the person you're pitching to is dumb. They have money, but they're dumber than you. They have more power than you, but they're dumber than you, right? So like you need to make them feel smart. Actually, I think that's a good point. Make them feel smart, make them be excited like a little kid so they can run to mommy or daddy, the partners in the fund. It's like, hey, this one is really cool. We should look at this one.
Yeah. We had that problem with the API slide. I didn't realize that at the beginning. You knew what APIs were, but I talked to a bunch of other funds and they're like, yeah, we know, what APIs are. And then it turns out they're not very,
like they understood
close
vaguely the concept, but they didn't know.
I explained it by using the Instagram example. Like every time you open Instagram, it's like an API request. So all of that data comes through API. Everybody understands that. So they kind of understand if they see, wrong images or wrong accounts, that something kind of might went wrong. But you're absolutely right. I can attest to this. The simpler and the more understandable that your deck is to basically anybody, that makes it easier for those guys to go sell to somebody, because in a lot of cases the partners might not be as young as a new generation like you. Partner might have 70 years and he's a very good investor but never used an API.
Exactly. They don't know all the latest words.
Do they know AI?
Maybe now, but again, they'll often assume the wrong things. So again, I think you need to just assume they know nothing.
Okay.
And then explain it. And the investors that know more, they'll be like, cool, let's skip through this and ask better questions. But by default, assume they know less than you think.
One kind of slide, and by the way, we're gonna show you a couple of decks. Now, the problem with showing decks is they're very confidential. We're gonna try to show as much as we can. We're gonna show our entire deck, so whoever wants to see our deck can do it both on our blog, but we're gonna talk to it. There's gonna be a slide in the early deck. It's a traction slide. So traction slide is probably one of the most, or at least the most interesting ones, right? And the ones that you kind of look at the most to kind of prove to these guys that, hey, somebody's using your product. So when we were building the first kind of, the early version of Treblle, I think we had like 50 users that are using Treblle. And like, that's basically, there's more people here, right? Or in this building, right? That's nothing. So my main concern was, is that enough data? Like, is that enough user? How do I justify raising $1 million, $2 million for 50 users that basically use the product every third day?
I think the easiest thing to do is, again, find one easy number that's growing the fastest and show that. In this case, you could be like, every single interaction that you've had on every single application on the internet is an API call. This is how fast these volumes are growing. These are the problems with that space. This is what we're solving. That's a better metric than 50 users. Obviously, if you have 5,000 users, then you'd be like, look how many users. Like, just find the one metric that is great or mind-blowing or like has the fastest velocity. Show that. And then obviously, you're showing that today. Once a better metric pops up, you show that one, you remove this one, right? Which is fine. But it's as you get more mature, you'll see, later on we'll show another slide from another company. They had a lot of revenue. They had a lot of revenue, so that's very easy. They actually made money. Then you just show the money slide, you don't have to describe anything else, and they're like, cool, I made nothing, and now I'm making X. Do you want to invest in me? Look how much money I'm generating. If you don't have money, don't mention money.
But do you still get excited?
Don't say I have 0, but I have 50 users. Don't talk 0, because then everyone's going to dig in on why are you making 0. Why do you only have 50? Last month you had 50. Do you have 100 now? I still have 50. I have 52 now.
We said we had like, I don't know, 2K revenue or something like that, and somebody churned that was like $500 at the time. You're like, don't mention that.
Don't talk about those numbers.
It's still low. Do you still get excited about growth numbers? Like, again, for us, it was the number of API calls that we process. Maybe for somebody else, it's users. Maybe the number of times somebody downloads an app or opens an app, whatever. If you see bigger numbers there, is that like better, worse? Do you prefer seeing revenue?
So I think it depends where you are. If you're pitching to European funds, they like revenue more. If you're pitching to American style funds, or even like American style funds in Europe, they like leading indicators, like usage or something, because that should correlate with revenue. Revenue is obviously a trailing indicator, right? So I think fundamentally, everyone investing in you wants to invest in a business that's making a lot of money. That's the only way they make money.
And nobody knows.
Nobody knows, but they want money, right? It's like, if the moment you have money, you show the money. If you don't have it, you show, again, the metric that's growing the fastest and has a strong correlation with money. And if you don't have that, again, sadly, it's true. Like, it's business. They got to invest for other investors. They also need to show, look, this company is growing the fastest in my portfolio. I'm investing more money into this. Every dollar I give you is creating X amount of dollars down the road.
I agree. Another slide that I was personally kind of stuck on, I didn't even know that was supposed to be there, because I was like, it's the GTM slide, right? So there's a slide usually, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of VCs like to understand how will you actually sell this or go to market. That's why it's called the GTM slide. And again, I didn't even know that. When you first said, where's your GTM slide? I'm like, GTM? So we found out what that was. And I thought, like, what do you mean? How am I going to go to market? Everybody's just going to buy my product.
Because it's amazing, right? I built the best product.
I've got the numbers, so I don't need anything else, right? So I feel like our first GTM, and we'll show it later, but I think like we've missed it, and it's changed, it evolved. So my question there was, should people be afraid to not make a mistake there? Or should you be like, let's say today, you're convinced that you're doing bottom up, and like 3 months from now, all of a sudden you realize, hey, I was wrong, let's do top down or enterprise sales or something like that. That makes more sense. We have proof points.
Every business, every VC scale business that's not B2C, right? Sooner or later has to do top-down enterprise sales. Sooner or later, somewhere in the journey. Because if you're making 500 million in revenue and you need to double that to $1 billion in revenue, you can't sell it to SMEs. You can't get that many SMEs in 1 year. You need to be getting multi-million-dollar contracts as well as SMEs.
Yeah.
Initially, going from 1 million to 2, from 2 to 5 million, you can do SMEs, you can do bottom-up, you can do product-led growth. But sooner or later, every company goes through that maturity curve. So I think they just want to understand, what is your approach? Your approach is going to determine how you need to hire the team, right?
Yeah.
That'll determine maybe which features, product features you need to push initially versus which ones you don't. That'll have to determine how you're positioning yourself in the market versus other startups.
Yeah.
That'll determine your pricing model. Although it's the exact same product, I think that's why the go-to-market gives a lot of information for the VC in terms of how well you understand your product, how you're positioning yourself in the market, and how you think you're going to make money. And
as well as the team that you're going to...
As well as the team. And again, a lot of times, founders just assume, I'm solving a hard problem, I'm a smart guy, I have a great product, it should sell. No.
It doesn't.
Best product does not win. Best distribution wins.
That is true.
And distribution is, again, the go-to-market, right? So I think that's why they spend a lot of time on the go-to-market, always. It'll change. It'll change over time. You learn, you try hypotheses. I thought it would be product-led growth. It wasn't. That's fine. You're allowed to make mistakes. But they want you to learn and say, what do you know? What don't you know?
I agree.
Where can I help you? Where can't I help you?
It is true. Distribution is, I think, king. When we talk about go-to-market, everything else, I would say it's much easier to figure out than distribution, because if you mess that channel up or you have to find that channel, it takes a long time, many mistakes. And I think the worst case is everybody's using the same channel. So I don't know how many startups are in this room, let's say 25, everybody's using the same channel. So do you see something like, I'm assuming that whenever a company comes in and says, hey, we're going to do PLG, hey, we're going to do bottom up, you're like, oh, I've seen that. Like everybody's doing
also,
PLG.
I think the danger is a lot of people, again, a lot of VCs like to see it. I don't like to see it. So this is my opinion. A lot of people say, this is my CAC, this is my LTV, I can acquire a customer for X amount of dollars. It's like, that's today.
That can change.
It'll change tomorrow. It'll change. You might get all the early adopters in Croatia. The moment you go to the late adopters, all of a sudden it'll balloon out. Sales cycles will change. So I think thinking that works and I can spend X dollars to make Y dollars, if it were that easy, 5 other copycats would come, spring up, and again, it'll affect your business. It is not, you're not playing alone.
I agree. Everybody has the same idea. That's how I would describe it. Or at least...
or if they see his idea is working really well, everybody is going to follow that idea, and all of a sudden that arbitrage disappears.
Yeah,
right?
I think for dev tooling, at one point it was Reddit. Everybody was doing Reddit. Like there's so many tools that help you scale things on Reddit. Nobody's doing Reddit anymore. Because first
there's a lot of pushback.
And also toxic, So you probably don't want to be there. Another kind of advice, and I keep telling this to everybody, kind of whenever we're building even sales decks and everything, is that you told me was it's all about the logos, right? So you kind of oversimplified it, but essentially meaning client logos. If you don't have those, then college logos, your employee college logos, your founder college, any kind of logo on a slide that anybody recognizes is better than no logo.
Yeah. It's annoying, but again, you're dealing with a dumb investor who needs to pitch you to the rest of the team. They'll be like, why should I meet these guys? They don't have X revenue. It's like, oh, no, but this guy worked at NVIDIA and he worked at ARM and they're doing something really technical. They're like, okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Or like he dropped out of, no, maybe not dropped, but like he won this maths Olympiad. Like anything I can brag about makes it easier. To somebody else. Makes it easier for them to look at you and dig deeper and give you some kind of validation before you have numbers, users, before you've solved the problem. The more you solve the problem, these credentials disappear because now it's just execution. But while you don't have them, you need to show something. But some people over-optimize on logos and that also backfires, right? So like don't say I won 20 startup awards.
Okay.
Nobody gives a shit about startup awards because they'll be like, you win 1 or 2, but you spend time for that.
Okay.
I'd rather you'd spend that time to sell and get customers. But stuff you did before the startup, that's useful.
Okay.
Logos during the startup that are not revenue driven or product driven will actually harm you more than you think.
Yeah.
And sometimes people confuse those two.
So what's kind of frowned upon? If I went to college, like Yale or Harvard or something like that, I put that, or maybe I worked for BCG or I don't know, some kind of company that's more famous. Do I put those?
Yes.
Does that send a stronger indication to the rest of the partners? Okay, this guy is vetted in some way.
In some way. Obviously, if the entire team, no offense to BCG, if the entire team is BCG or the entire team is X,
yeah,
then again, sometimes that backfires.
Okay.
Because again, then the people are like, okay, but I need a well-rounded team. Okay. I want somebody that has done this, I want someone technical, I want somebody else. So I think you want the breadth of logos, but also have logos that are real. Okay. If you interned at BCG, that's also impressive. But then don't put that as the most prominent logo in the slide deck, because the moment they look at it, they're like, yeah, but that was 8 years ago for one summer, and then the entire career was in automotive. It's like, that's fine, just show automotive, don't mention BCG in that case.
Yeah, we looked at one guy that interned. I was like, look, Google, you were like, he interned there.
Which is still impressive, but less impressive.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, I don't even know. I think we had a couple of. So what we did in our deck, you'll see that we didn't have any logos, or I think one logo that was recognizable. But we did have a service company before this, so we added all the logos from there, and we were like, hey, we worked with these guys, so it made sense.
Exactly.
Cool. And how do you essentially? We've talked about early stage decks. I feel like everything that we've talked about is about early stage decks and missing data because you don't have a lot of data points. Does your deck evolve with time? If we take a look at our deck or Series A, B, C, D deck, are these decks more complicated as times go by? Is the expectation that as you grow, you need to build a more formal, more driven, more number-driven, number-focused deck?
Exactly. So the deck sizes actually start expanding a little bit. So I think you usually put like 15, 20 slides, but you'll often see at the later stages, sometimes it'll be 30 slides or whatever, because there's way more numbers to break down. You can always summarize it.
Okay.
Right? So I think you can always stick to the 20 slides, more or less.
So 20 is optimum.
I think for most people, they expect 20, 25. So something you can skim quickly, that's good, that's short or long enough that you can do a 20-minute, half an hour call, usually. Right, like a minute a slide, I think is the rule of thumb. But it changes. Like you'll see, for very technical deals or early stage companies, people will usually put the team slide or something earlier on.
Yeah, we talked about
For more mature companies, it'll just be like, these are all the numbers. Sometimes you'll read like 5 slides and you still have no clue what the company is doing. But that's fine, because you're like, look how profitable we are, look how fast we're growing, look at all the logos we have.
Do you care at all?
At that point, investors like, looks good. And then at like slide 20, it's like, that's what they do. But that's fine, because they're making a lot of money. They made a lot of money with very little money. That's what they're looking for.
So basically you don't care, right? It's okay.
Exactly.
In that case, if they're making a lot of money, they could be selling the
And
water.
also most funds, after Series A, they become way more generalist anyway.
Okay.
Right? So they're just looking for companies that are making money.
Okay. That's
how fast and how big is the market, but it'll be how much money are they making? Do I think it's big enough for me as a fund?
Yeah.
And different funds will have different criteria.
And you guys have thesis. I've talked about it on previous founder meetups. Like you guys have a thesis on what do you think will succeed. You're betting on AI, you're betting on this, you're betting on that the future is gonna kind of look like this, and you're looking for startups that are solving problems in that area. And if you see a deck from that area that you're passionate about, is it like, do you like it more immediately?
Yeah, exactly. But again, I think don't forget, just because VCs don't like your deck or don't like you, that doesn't mean you have a bad business. It just means you're not a fit with that investor, right? And also, most of the investors are wrong half the time. So again, it doesn't mean anything. But I think sometimes founders take it too hard, too much, and they'll ask for feedback. And then if I have a different thesis and I give you feedback, that might actually harm your deck with investors that actually understand that space and believe in that space, right? So I think they might try to help you, but usually I think don't ask for very direct deck feedback.
Okay.
Because again,
It's individual and
it's individual, and half the time it'll be wrong or not help you much, unless it's like a big mistake in the deck. They're like, you shouldn't have done this. Sometimes you'll see founders say, I'm raising X at this number, at this valuation. You can do that if you're a super hot deal. But whenever you put a number there, no one's going to pay more than that number, right? They're going to ask less than that number, which is fine for me, not good for you.
Yeah, I think we just placed the number that we wanted to raise. So no,
but
initially
initially you wanted to put a number there.
Yeah, I did.
And I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pay. I'll never pay more than that number then.
Yeah, it's not a negotiation if I tell you everything. Yeah.
Exactly.
And what about some of the crazy stories when we talk about the decks? I know Mistral or whatever, Mistral AI, like the 5-page memo, like a Word document. Is that like, what do you think about those situations? Is that, would you invest?
I mean, they raised 150 million.
No, I think, they did.
150, I think, you see a lot of that when times are hot and they're in a hot space. If you're not in a hot space, you see a proper deck.
Is that like, oh, these guys didn't even bother, or is it like they're so good that
they're so hot they don't have time to write a deck?
Okay.
You know, it's like, I'm too smart. I don't need to be in PowerPoint.
Okay.
No, so I think you do see that. It works sometimes. I've seen memos.
Okay.
A lot of people during COVID had a deck, a short teaser deck, and they actually had a proper memo.
So what
10 pages, 15 pages, but like kind of like everything you would put in a deck, but written out.
So it's basically an extension of the vision that you kind of have
Extension of the vision, but it was a deck that VCs could use, because every VC needs to write a memo when they invest in you.
I see.
So a lot of deals during COVID in the data room would have a pre-written IC memo that the investor could kind of like copy paste and tweak to then pitch internally. It's like, this is how the position versus the competition. This is the go-to-market. These are the team profiles. This is the business model. This is the raise they're raising. This is how they're trying to use it.
So if the startup kind of structures it properly, gives you all the data either in a deck or a memo, they make your life easier later?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's always useful.
So where do you lose the most amount of time when you're pitching to the rest of the founders? What could they...
To the investors.
Yeah. What could they basically help you with the most? Is it like competitors? Is it like vision? Is it like...
I would say in most cases it'll be... A lot of times when people kill a deal, when they're discussing it on a Monday or a Tuesday or whenever, they think the market size is too small. So that's why the market size slide is important. But it has to align with their gut feeling as well.
Okay.
So if it's non-obvious, you need to explain it well.
Yeah.
Again, logos, traction, but like it's different. Like if you say I've got 1 million in revenue from 100,000 people, that's impressive, right? If I've got 1 million from, you often see this, I got 1 million from 10 people, that's also impressive. But then you look at the numbers, actually, it's like, oh, cool, 900,000 of that 1 million is one customer, and everything else is the other 10. That's also impressive, right? You could sell that one, but it's like, that's less mature company, because how many of these 900,000 contracts can you get? Maybe that was your best friend, I don't know. No, but like, maybe you had a connection to that company, right? Versus more numbers, it's more repeatable, there's more understanding, there's more data. A lot of European VCs often say they're like enterprise software. They don't, because there's not enough data in it. So when they say enterprise, they mean B2B, but then they'd rather have you sell to 50 customers, then they can say, okay, this actually worked. The sales cycle is actually 2 months long because you've done it 50 times.
Because they want to measure it, right?
Anything that helps them do analysis and anything that makes them brag internally, again. Look, they've already sold to Facebook and they've already got Atlassian and they've got this and...
So what do those Monday meetings, Tuesday meetings look like?
And the last thing that makes everybody the most excited, I think Sequoia is looking at it, or I think insert hot fund is looking at this deal right now, or they love it for next round. We can do it now and they'll do the next round. Again, it's like creating a scarcity mindset. Why do I need to get into you now, rather than I want to invest in you in general?
So basically, Monday, Tuesday meetings. If you find a startup like that, you're basically the star.
Oh, it is
of the
no, but
show.
you prioritize it, right?
Okay.
If it's a FOMO deal, I will say, shit, we need to move meetings to talk to them today, tomorrow.
Okay.
Rather than, oh, this is a nice deck. This is cool. Let's schedule a meeting next week.
Okay.
It's again, velocity.
How long is that process from you basically looking at a deck to maybe moving and even closing? How long do you think? on
For
average?
us as a fund, 2 weeks usually.
2 weeks. That's pretty.
I
that's
think the
pretty fucking
fastest
fast.
we've done has been, well, the fastest I've seen us do has been 72 hours.
Nice. How much was the round? If you can. If
That was like a 2 million round.
Nice.
The fastest my colleagues said they've done it.
That's also a thing, right?
They've said 10 hours once. And I was like, I don't believe that. And they're like, no, we saw it and we had the IC on Saturday at like midnight. And I was like, that doesn't sound normal.
Who sends who does a IC?
No, we've done that.
Really?
So we've done one on Christmas. We've done one on...
So IC is like their internal committee where
Investment committee,
yeah.
exactly. So you discuss the whole deal, you decide if you want to make an offer or not. If you make an offer, what terms you want to offer them, what price, how much you want to invest. But we've also had some of our founders. We had one of the term sheets sign as she was giving birth.
Oh my God.
In the hospital, she signed it.
That was a very happy birth then.
No, but we were like, we can wait. And she's like, no, we're signing this. We're all signing it. I've got this deal done.
What was that, like July last year or this year?
No, this was a few years ago.
right.
This was pre-COVID.
Is she still, is her...
She's done that twice now.
Oh, really?
The second, so that was the seed round. And then I think for the Series B, again, she was in the hospital with her second child.
Okay.
When she signed it. So that's the kind of founders VCs like to see.
Does that happen very often? No, I've heard some of these stories from SF, and the shortest amount that I was offered was also a day. So 10 hours, you're still the big guy in the room.
No, but like in SF, like especially like YC companies, it'll be like in the meeting itself. In that half an hour meeting, people will be like, cool, I'll give you 1 million. I think that's a little bit too short for us.
Yeah.
Because you can't discuss it with the team. You can't really, and those YC decks are 6 slides. There's no information on them. They're useful, but they're very young companies.
Yeah, a lot of these bigger multi-billion-dollar funds, I guess the partner has like a limit, let's say 5 million. He doesn't have to ask anybody.
Yeah.
He could just give out 5 million to random people.
So become friends with them.
Yeah.
That's the easy way.
Cool. So we're a bit over time. We want to show a couple of decks that we'd like to talk to. It's going to be, my neck is going to kind of kill me, but we're going to start with the first one.
This is actually a very, very technical deal.
Yeah.
Quantum computing. They were raising 20 million in 21. They raised 25 million Series A. And see, this is always like the second slide, but like it starts with the team. You see the logos, you see the team.
More logos.
More logos. They already say what they're doing. Already some things that they've done. They're actually underselling themselves, because I think later on in the deck, you actually realize that all the advisors and everybody in the team, they're the most quoted quantum team, I think, in Europe.
So this is, like Saagar said, a very technical deck, right? And I think they also did a really good job of kind of explaining what they do.
Exactly. So in this one, they're first explaining all the potential use cases of their solution. Like if their solution could come in, it could work across these industries, shows you how much money is already flowing into this industry, as well as...
This is the money slide.
This is the money slide, like, which is actually, this is actually a very dense slide, but it doesn't look that dense. They're saying, this is how much value we can create.
Yeah, that's unlimited amount of money.
These are huge numbers, right? On their own, if they can bring the error rates for quantum computing down to these factors. And then it goes on to say, this is how normal people are bringing error rates down.
Yeah.
This is how we are bringing error rates down.
Yeah.
So again, relatively dense slide explaining error rates scale quadratically in general. They manage to scale it linearly, hence they're at least 1,000 times better than the entire competition, which is why you give me money, I'll be 1,000 times faster than Google, Amazon, everybody else.
Yeah.
And that is probably the strongest technical deck I've ever seen.
I'm offended, but okay.
This is slightly more technical than what you're doing.
On purpose, you told me not to make it technical, but yeah, this is
no, but like this is again like this is
Very
a very
technical.
technical space. Every company in this space was not making any revenue, so nobody could brag on revenue and traction, or like not real traction. So everybody was positioning themselves with saying, there's 5 different ways. Nobody knows which way is going to win, but they all need to counter position themselves against everybody else. This is why our team is good.
let's try to put a kind of baseline for these deck. Is this we're meeting on Christmas and kind of signing the deal type of deck?
I think, especially because the space is so hard, nobody would do a deal that fast. Because also the raise size is huge.
Yeah.
But I would say, in this entire space, I think I saw like 50 or 100 decks in this space alone.
Yeah.
This is by far the best one. Okay. And this is also the deck that I could show to everybody else in the team straight away. And they'd be like, I get it. This is how big it is.
Look at the number.
No, but like, big number. But like, a lot of technical teams often go too far into the tech.
Yeah.
And most of the investors don't understand it that well. Because again, you're making them do the logical jump.
Yeah.
Because it's super technical, this is how big the market could be. This is the value. If you can show them the ROI.
Yeah, like this slide, yeah. Sorry.
Exactly. So this slide on its own is like, this is the value creation. Even look, the first value creation is huge. But then how big it is, you should be like, regardless how much money I put in, even if I get a tiny fraction of that,
still a big number.
I make so much money, we need to look at it. And you don't get industries that are that big in general, right? So I think, which is why a lot of money has flown.
I didn't even know like this was possible. So our numbers are definitely not that.
No, exactly. But obviously the idea behind quantum is you can solve NP hard problems. So a lot of things that are impossible to solve with today's compute are potentially solvable with this, which is why it's so exciting. But yeah, so this is so you see, we started with slide number 2. Slide 1 is just the logo slide. I mean, this is the name and the date of the team. So they're straight away starting with the thing that is strongest.
I like how Yale was third, but yeah.
No, yeah, because of course they're French, right?
Yeah.
So it's the French university, I suppose. But like it explains very quickly why the team is exciting, what they're doing is big, and how they're already super advanced and better than everybody else. Then if you go to the next one, the next deck. Unless you want to spend more time on this one.
No. Let's go to the next one, the most fun one.
So this one
I guess
is the most fun one. And again, like this is again the second slide, and it'll be just like huge numbers. Look how many people have already used us. We've only been live for like 6 months or 4 months. We're already the 3rd largest Discord globally, bigger than ChatGPT.
Who measures that even? Like,
no, that was online. It was on LinkedIn. It was everywhere because they overtook.
And when you see this, like, what's your reaction?
Holy shit! I need to speak to them right now.
Because of the Discord server.
No, 3rd largest. They're bigger than. Look, this is an AI company, and they were larger than ChatGPT's AI community.
Yeah.
Which is unheard of, right? And then they've got 4 or 5 slides just like this. Okay, look, we launched in Feb. Look how many users we already have. Crazy. Next slide. Look how many people are paying us. Still huge. Next slide. Look how many images have been generated. Huge numbers. Next slide. A lot of signups, of course. And now the killer slide. Wait, this slide? Oh, yeah, exactly. Look how much money we've already made in 4 months.
So the deck ends here, as far as they're concerned.
So, and then they've got
this
another...
This is a Christmas deck, right?
This is the Christmas deck where everyone, even if they couldn't invest in the geo, they couldn't invest in the space, the handful of investors that had it, they were sharing it with everybody else because they're like, you need to see this deck, you need to get in front of these guys. Because you don't get decks like this and these numbers ever.
Yeah, the numbers are very big.
Exactly.
Every number.
As of now, look, these are slides 2 till now. They've never mentioned really what they're doing, right? And now it's pipeline. This is a weird slide, really. And then they go into a little bit what they're doing and where they're positioned and everything else. They are, now it really explains what they do. But everybody was sold with the numbers. And again, I think it's whatever thing you can brag about the most, the one takeaway message that the investor can then go to the rest of the team is like, we need to speak to them now.
Yeah.
To highlight that and then still cover everything else.
By the way, the decks that we're showing, they're obviously not, these are incomplete decks, right? So we've kind of tried to randomize them as much as we could because, like I said, shouldn't be shared.
So obviously, both of these companies have already raised these rounds.
Yeah.
So this is slightly out of date information, but it's still
relevant.
Proprietary information.
This not proprietary at all.
This is everywhere. Everyone's seeing this.
Yeah. This is on our blog post, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. It's actually slide by slide with explanation on our blog if anybody cares. But yeah.
So this was when they were just 3 people.
Yeah.
And they didn't really have revenue.
So no logo slide.
But if they had logos, that's where all the different logos would come, right?
We did have logos here. So.
Yeah, exactly. So these are all the logos they've worked with. So giving credibility to the team, why we should be speaking to them now, right? And obviously kind of explaining because not everybody knows the space.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A bit more about the kind of the problem of what we're trying to solve. Again, now, in my opinion, the market slide, how big the market has been growing. I think maybe one thing that we didn't mention is, as you can see, I pointed out a couple of things, like 66% of developers expect to use more APIs in 2020 than 2019. That's a huge bump in people who might be using something
so
like
these all affect you, like the market slides is explaining, this is how huge opportunity is and can be.
This is like what we do. Again, a bit more drill down of what we do, even though this, I also think is too technical already, especially like when you mentioned transform dynamic.
The normal investor doesn't know what that means, right?
Yeah.
So this is more like for your customers potentially.
Yeah.
But
this is where I actually like to give a demo.
Yeah.
So I actually got the demo down to maybe like 5-10 minutes. And then again, this is the slide that we've had the most kind of, or at least I struggle the most because it's actually basically low numbers, right? 30 real life projects, I call them real life. But essentially, some of these companies were using it back then. And then again, how do we compare to others? We've talked about it, like who might be the competitors, how do we do it, etc., etc. The GTM slide, as you see, we made the same mistake. Reddit, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the mistakes that one can make.
But back then, that made sense.
Yeah.
Right? So like, I think it made sense for everybody. For developers, they're going to find you, they're going to look it up there.
Yeah. Our pricing, that changed probably like 20 times so far, and it's probably going to change 20 more.
But again, because the pricing will then come back into the market size.
This is the amount that we were asking. We actually didn't even know how much money we wanted. We just knew it had to be more than $1 million because that's what it made sense.
But also, I think one thing that's changed since COVID, pre-COVID in Europe, a lot of investors, everybody would ask for a range.
Yeah.
Since COVID, the ranges have disappeared.
Yeah.
You just ask for a specific number.
Yeah.
But then again, ask for a round number because everybody's, again, VCs are dumb and lazy. Just remember that. That's the key takeaway from this meeting, right? So if you ask for 3 million at seed, they were like, it's probably going to be worth 12 million or 15 million.
Yeah.
They're just assuming they're going to get 20 to 25% of the company.
Something easily multiplicable by 5,
Something
7.
easily multiplicable. If you say 2.5, they're like, 10? Maybe 10 post. But they're never going to do 10 pre because it's a weird number.
Yeah.
Asking for 3.5, I've seen somebody ask for 3.5. I was like, why? 3.5 doesn't make any sense. It's not 15, it's not 17.5, it's 16.5. So
makes sense.
Just ask for 5.
Yeah.
And again,
make it easier. Yeah.
Make it easy, and it's actually easier to ask for more because people think you're aggressive and it's hot and they need to invest in you now. Then if you ask for a very precise small number, they're like, oh no, you're not ambitious enough. Which is counterintuitive, but
I definitely agree with that. But when you actually hit 5, 6, 7 no's on your aggressive amount, you should say, I'm a reasonable guy. I made that number up and not I know a couple of founders that were, I want 10 million on like, I don't know, for like 10%, I'm not giving up. And he never raised.
So I think the problem is the 10% thing. A lot of funds need themselves 10, 15% internally. That's what they've agreed with their investors. They say, that's what I'm going in the market. That's what I'm hunting for. So assume you're going to give up 20% equity dilution.
Yeah.
Based on that, you can then become aggressive.
Yeah.
If you want to give 10, that means they'll expect you to be valued at 40.
Yeah.
If they think you're nowhere close to 40, they'll shut it down.
Yeah.
And the worst thing is everybody says no, they like you come back. A month later, I'm raising 5 now. They're not going to talk to you.
Yeah.
They're not, right? Like, so I think, again, be aware of how aggressive you can be. And if you're bluffing, you can't fold. You need to keep bluffing.
Yeah. You're all in at that.
You're all in, exactly, you're all in. And I think that's dangerous.
The last deck is actually my favorite one. He made this deck. It's the deck
Well,
for
so
his...
this is fundraising for our fund.
Yeah. So they also have to raise money from other people. So they also have to create decks. And it's a really nice deck.
Obviously, again, like a lot of the slides I'm missing. But so this one starts with us as a team. This is us. This is 4 of us. Again, high level giving you what we're raising, what we do, what we've done. So obviously this deck is a little bit older. We've done 26 deals by now. But then again, explaining what we're doing, because a lot of investors invest and people need to understand which box do they put you in.
But it's a very nice deck, very good design deck.
Took us a while.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
But yeah, and then again, what we wanted to do is a lot of decks look very similar on the VC side. Our website is also weird, but it's good because
I like this.
when people see our deck and or our website, even we're in rooms with funds that are 10 times our size, 100 times our size, and they're like, you're the guys with the deck. You're the guys with the website. It's like every fund has a website, but people remember us. And again, we're just explaining why we're investing, where we're investing. So this is like positioning and counter positioning, right? And then why we're unique and why you should invest in us versus somebody else. Kind of like every startup, why you should invest in me versus somebody else. Then obviously why we're the capital, really, right? We are the product. Then explaining our backgrounds, what we have done. This is effectively our logo slide, but we didn't actually show logos. It's all in the text. Look, we've all worked at different big funds. Look, we've all done these kind of stuff. We all have a role to play, and we all individually very strong, but also together, this is why we think we're winning all of these deals.
Yeah.
Plus we have useless facts like this.
So yeah, that's the last one there. Again, obviously not the entire deck, but hopefully you'll get kind of everybody here now understands why decks are important, how to basically structure some of these decks, how to build them, and we'd be more than happy, or at least Saagar, if somebody has a question for me, I'd be more than happy as well. But feel free to ask any questions to Saagar. We have a cap of, let's say, 10 minutes. And later on, you can always ask Saagar after he kind of eats. So any questions?
Q&A time.
Yeah, anything, anybody. Just, no,
but it's for the camera.
I forgot, he's gonna kill me. So we hand out mics now. That's how sophisticated.
So you're not louder, it's just so...
Yeah, it's for the camera, essentially.
One, is it working?
No, it's only for the camera. It's only for the camera.
I told you that.
Yeah, exactly. So same with our mics, it's for the camera.
Okay, so you've said you've been a part of, I think, 15.
At the previous fund, yeah.
Okay. What was your least slide deck and your hugest slide deck? You said 20 is the optimum.
20 is optimum.
So
I think.
Did you invest in some fund that had 4 slides, let's say?
We haven't done 4 or 1. I think Buster's shortest thing must have been 12. But I think the longest was 55 or 60.
Really?
No, but just because they were, but it was a Series A, so there's a bit more data. But their slides were very bold slides, right? It's like one key takeaway. So as they were talking, they're like click, 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 right? But that was good. But initially, when we showed it internally, they're like, this is way too many slides. It's like, no, because when everybody prints out the slide deck, it doesn't make sense.
You guys print it out? I didn't know.
No,
that.
a lot of people do.
Really? Black and white or color? That's my next question.
Depends on the fund. Small funds, black and white.
Oh, okay.
No, but
there's no point in designing.
No, but I mean, I think a lot of people print it out. If it's a bigger group and they're going into the IC meeting together, everybody scribbles their own thoughts onto it, like where they want to ask questions or whatever. Then it depends on the fund, right? So like now at Begin, we don't have the founders present in the IC.
Okay.
We just internally discuss. So we've all seen the deck, so none of us is printing it out.
Why did
we
you
write the memo
decide to do
ourselves.
that? Why did you decide to not get the founders to present at the IC?
Because we're only 4 people team, all of us have already met the team.
Okay.
So like in Bus, we make sure everybody's met the team anyway, and that works because we're a small team.
Yeah, and then you just decide.
So then I don't need you to present it again because everybody's already had interactions with the team.
Okay.
At larger funds, sometimes they bring in the team because that's not the case.
Okay.
Can we know who will receive the deck? Who will be reading it? That's the first question. And the question why I'm asking it is because can we hype it directly for that person? Because if we convince you that this is the hot topic, the best product ever, then you will be our promoter for that pitch.
You mean champion?
Yeah,
You're
champion,
a sales
champion.
guy. You're a sales guy. You're always building champions. Nice.
No, exactly. So usually, again, it depends on the fund structure and the size. So you can see that on LinkedIn, on the website, right? Like if it's a small team, whoever you send it to is probably going to be the person that looks at it themselves. If it's a larger fund, whoever you send it to, it'll get fed down to someone else, to an analyst or an associate, and they will look at it, and then it'll have to feed up again. Obviously, if I already know you, or if you're a partner at another fund and you recommend it to me, I might look at it myself. If it's something else, it just goes into the normal funnel, whatever the funnel is for the fund.
Have you ever gotten a personalized, like your picture, Saagar, whatever, please invest in us?
I've got personalized messages.
Really?
Sometimes you get a deck like that, yeah.
Really?
So for us on our website, so they don't change the deck often that much, but like on our website, it's a funny website, but like there's a slogan generator at the bottom as well.
Okay.
And a lot of people sometimes in their email, you can see they've read the website, they click with the humor,
okay.
and then they link some unique stuff to that. And usually out of all of those, at least for us, I think we always take the meeting.
Okay.
No, because again, it's like you actually understand.
You read.
At least you read what we do.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, and you pick the right person from the 4 that's maybe relevant for you.
Yeah.
And you reached out to me. If you reach out to everybody in the team and you say, hey, I see you're an investor in B2B SaaS and you like Zagreb, and we should talk, and it looks very fake.
Yeah.
And then that hurts you.
What's the best way of sending? Sorry, I'm hijacking.
No,
if anybody else has a question, just please raise the hand. Ivan will kind of hand you the mic. What's the best way to send you a deck?
For us, we have our emails on the website, so we use direct outreach. But again,
You read every deck that comes in?
yes. Sadly.
Nice.
But do we respond to everyone? I try to.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of people don't.
Okay.
LinkedIn is worse for sending decks.
Really?
No, because LinkedIn is not good at notification management,
Okay.
right? So like, you can get bombarded, you'll be buried in LinkedIn notifications, and then I might just see it too late. I think emails are in general better, because people are better at keeping inbox 0 on email than something else. But the best one is a warm intro, somebody else talking, and the best is, I want to talk to you and you don't want to talk to me. I'm like, oh no, she's the hot girl, I want to.
While we're at that, what should the subject be? I feel like everybody says just email me. I also like say people, I'm kind of like the sales guy there. VPs of engineering are like, oh, just send us your deck, we'll respond. They never respond. So essentially, what's the subject? Something especially works for you? Like, hey, Saagar, please look at my deck. No?
I think sometimes
I love you or something.
Sometimes those work, no, but I think in general it's just, if it looks like a meeting or normal, just like begin capital X company name.
Oh, okay.
Or
Yeah,
something. It just looks like a normal meeting, and then
like a Calendly.
kind of, but it looks like a normal interaction that we would have had already. I've seen some people actually do it where it looks like you already had a discussion.
Yeah,
so it has like
yeah.
blah, 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 and then you're like, what is this? But again, you can't do that all the time, right? So I think
Yeah.
people figure out really quick.
Yeah,
But it works. Those
like-
hacks work.
Yeah, they
For a
work.
short period of time.
I think 2022 was the year that everybody put the name of the company, then those greater, less than signs, and then the second name of the company, and you're assuming, hey, it's
Because
a Calendly invite, and
because
it.
that's how most investors write their meetings anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, cool, I should look at this because it fits into the box of this is a company introduction, company interaction.
Yeah.
If it's something else, I'll be like, maybe this is advertising, maybe this is something else, and you deprioritize it.
Vedran,
Saagar, how does one create urgency when contacting you? I think the advice you gave around speed and execution is really good. I had an acquisition I did about 15 years ago. I did it before the previous company that wanted to acquire had the next meeting with the company that was acquired. So speed was extremely important. How does one create the sense of urgency if I send you an email? And I'm not using urgent all caps.
That backfires too much.
Of course it does.
Sadly, the urgency has to be created by someone else, not by you, because they don't believe you, because they don't know you, right? Like it has to be from somebody in their network. It can be from another investor. Like I think, again, they trust other investors more
that is true.
than you, because at least they know them, and at least they're all assuming that we're playing a multi-game of game theory. So if
4D chess, yeah.
yeah, but like the fact that we're both in the same industry and we're both in it long enough, if you share a shit deal with me, I'm going to start deprioritizing the deals you send me. Because if you send me a good deal and you say, hey, this is a really hot deal, you should look at it, I will look at it straight away.
So then my follow-up question would be, would you sort of toss a deal you think is cool, but it's just not your focus to Vedran?
Yes. So because most VCs will have multiple, probably a third or quarter of all their meetings are just catch-ups with other investors. And they're all coming with a list to be like, look, I'm valuable and I got insights that you don't have. So I'm going to share information, VC gossip, startup gossip. This company is raising this much on nothing. It's crazy, right? But also, these are good deals that you might like and they'll hopefully reciprocate. So again, if I have a good deal that they might like, I will share it for sure. I will share with angels because again, it helps everybody in the ecosystem and that means in the future, maybe I'll get better deal flow from them. But so you can't create the urgency or the FOMO. Somebody else has to do it for you. But again, if it's genuine FOMO, I think it shines through automatically. Or it can just be like, hey, these guys are the lead. There's this much open. Do you want to have a look? That works as well. But again, if it comes directly from you, they don't trust it as much. Because I guess the lead is in place, but maybe they've been in place for 3 months. I don't know. You just keep changing the date, right? But since it comes directly from the lead, they're like, hey, I'm investing in them. There's X million open. Do you want to co-invest? That's the best. So just ask people on your cap table, who can you make introductions to? Even if they don't have a strong connection with that other fund, that you can have your own list. It's like, I want to reach out to these funds. Based on my LinkedIn, I think you're connected to this guy, you're connected to this guy. Just ask your investors. You can do the research yourself on LinkedIn and ask them, it's like, do you know this person? Do you know them well enough that you could make this email for me?
Yeah.
And if they kind of know them, they will do it. It's not harming their reputation. Unless they really don't believe in your deal, but if they're already on your cap table, they should believe in it.
I mean, things change, you know.
No,
Make
exactly.
mistakes.
Exactly. But I think it's, make other people create the FOMO for you.
I feel like you guys are more closer to like a sales organization as well. You guys have a pipeline, you guys have everything, but the only contradictory thing is sharing deals. That's not something you see in any, like I wouldn't share a really good deal with another API observability company.
No, but also I think, again, not a lot of funds do that. Well, it depends. No, it depends. So a lot
Probably
of
the biggest ones don't give up.
in America is
Yeah.
different. But again, I think in Europe, a lot of funds don't share deals with each other because they're in direct competition with each other, right? If you need 15%, I need 15%, it doesn't work. That if you're both Series A funds in this city, we'll never talk to each other, right? We take less equity, so we can share deals. A lot of people share deals, especially I think The best people to find deals to share with are either partners, but realistically, actually people that are right below partner. Because they still position themselves in the VC ecosystem. They're sharing way more because they might not become partner at this fund, but if I share good deals at that fund, I could become partner at that fund, right? So I think there's a lot of that.
Cool. Anybody else? No? Cool.
There's also pizza.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, give Saagar 5 minutes to eat, then he can answer it. He can hear your pitches and decks, whatever. I asked this to everybody, so I'm gonna ask you as well. It wasn't the topic, but generally, what do you think is gonna happen in the next year in kind of startups, investments, VCs? Is it gonna get better? Is it gonna get worse? Is it gonna be only AI?
It does feel like it, right? Like it feels like AI, compute, data is again becoming hot. I think it will be two things. A lot of startups became relatively profitable. It had to become more profitable in the last year or two. Team sizes became leaner. Revenue was harder to come by. Money just became more expensive for everyone. For the startups, for the VCs, for your customers, right?
Yeah.
So like growth rates have reduced, which means over the next 2-3 years, you're going to see a lot of startups just die.
Okay.
Or they're going to go from the VC path to like a private equity profitable path.
Okay.
Which is also fine as a business. But it means that a lot of VCs can't look at you anymore because you're not growing fast enough.
Yeah.
Because they still need to hold you for 6 or 7 years. And compounding at 1.2 versus 2.2 is a huge difference over 8 years.
Yeah.
And I think that is the difference. A lot of funds are huge right now because they raised in 21.
So there's still a lot of money.
There's a lot of money and they want to raise more. It's just
Oh,
an ego
really?
thing. No, but again, like if I have a bigger fund, it's kind of like every metric has to go to the top and to the right. AUM, top and to the right. If I got used to drawing this much management fee, if you tell me, cool, next fund is half the size, all of us get half the money,
Yeah.
that's not going to work for a lot of people. For a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So they need to deploy more money. And I think that's why they'll be chasing. If anything, I think they're going to chase hotter spaces more. And I think it's going to be faster and faster, more and more bubble investing than it was in the past.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Thank you, by the way, for coming. He flew by just for this, no other reason, so I really appreciate it. And thank you all for coming. Pizza is already on the table. Feel free to kind of eat and drink. Again, thanks to the entire Treblle team for kind of making this happen. They always kind of have to work a few days before and a few days after, especially Ivan, who's stressed all the time. Will I fuck up? Will I not fuck up? Will I do something crazy? So thank you all for coming.
Thank you.